Hey guys, what's going on? So, there is a reason why this video is coming out so late, and there's two reasons. Had I done this video when the hero balance changes dropped, it would have just been me ranting, and I'm still gonna rant, but I have much more cohesive thoughts about why I'm angry now, as opposed to when it first dropped and I read it. And I was like really excited and then became immediately less excited and was just really angry. But I also just didn't have a lot to talk about, and I will have a lot to talk about now that they've added the Random Island tournament, because that is incredibly it's really interesting. It's like a unique version of, I think, Rush for Glory, the one where you can pick your units, where Alchemist runs the world. Alchemist will not run the world, by the way, but we'll get to that. So this is I have to rant because I still want to rant, and I have been able to, in the past, the amount of time that when it dropped and now, I've had time to make cohesive thoughts and reasons for why I dislike this and why it's bad. I will always praise Rush Royale for when they do good things. I will praise them for not being a pay-to-win company. It is not, despite what you think, this is not a pay-to-win game. It is a pay-to-play better people game. And I've expressed this in multiple different videos, so I won't go into that because we don't have time. We need to talk about Gadget. So when they announced that they were going to buff Gadget, nerf Mermaid, buff Flicker, I was incredibly excited. I think that Flicker as a unit that you can, or a hero that you can specifically only get through Dragon Rift, is in its own way a free to play unit, because you can just farm Dragon Rift every single time it comes around, and that could be what you should be spending all of your resources to get, because that's the only way to get it, and you can as a free to play person, you can just keep playing Dragon Rift every single time it comes around. It comes around pretty often, and then just use all of your resources to get Flicker shards, and you can max out a Flicker. So them buffing Flicker, and me having a level 16 Gadget, I think I have a level, I have a 16, almost 17 Gadget. I was obviously incredibly excited for that. And then the Mermaid nerfs, that seems pretty obvious because Mermaid is the most sought after hero. For the too long didn't want to wait people, Gadget is awful. Mermaid is not as bad as you think it is. Flicker is still terrible. It's still pretty awful. With that out of the way, and with those people leaving my video because that's all they wanted to hear, I'm going to rant about why I think this is awful. I will always praise Rush Royale for doing good things, but I have to say, if there is something negative that I think, I'm also going to say that, you guys fucked up. And guess what? They fucked up. But why did they fuck up? Why did Rush Royale fuck up? Why do I think that? I'm going to take you back to a time when Zeus was not the best hero. Gadget was. Gadget, giving all of your heroes, or every single one of your units on the field, a buff. A generic buff for every hero. Or, I'm sorry, I keep saying hero. For every unit, because there is a difference in this game between unit and hero. Gadget giving a buff to every single unit on your field over the course of time, right? Because you have to keep hitting the activation, and it took a while. That was the trade-off. It took a while to get all of your field buffed. You would get 2 tiles, and then 2 tiles, and there's 15 tiles. So you would have to activate it 8 times. And it was also the hero that took the longest to do the hero power. Jay and Trickster were the shortest, and then everything else was like pretty much even, and then Gadget took the longest. And so, but over the course of time, it was the best hero because it gave your field a permanent buff. A lot of people try to argue that Trainer's good because it gives your field like a super strong buff, and then you just have to activate it. But the difference is that you have to activate it. And if you don't understand that difference, you don't understand this game. A passive bonus will always be much better than a bonus that you need to do something to activate it. If you have to, like, for instance, if there was a cleansing mechanic on Inquisitor, if Inquisitor said every 30 seconds all the Inquisitors cleanse, that would be better than having to summon in an Inquisitor and having to sacrifice it. Because then you can deck build in a different way, because you can rely on that every 30 seconds, all of your units will cleanse. Yes, you can summon in Inquisitors and then scrapper them, but now you're forcing yourself to use scrapper. If it was the other way, maybe you don't have to run scrapper. Maybe because they're all going to cleanse anyway, you can deck build in a different way. The passive abilities that just stay because they stay, will always be better than if you have to do something to activate it. You are only getting a bonus on Trainer if you activate the hero power. You get the bonus from Gadget by just doing it, and then it sits there, and for the rest of your game, that bonus will always be there. You will always have it. It's the difference between Abundance and Morally Gray. Yes, Morally Gray, you're getting a 20% boost whenever your opponent activates their hero power, but with Abundance, you're always getting a plus 10% as soon as you get to level 5. And that plus 10% is probably better than a 0% or 20%. Gadget, giving your entire board tiles that you get passive bonus with, made it better than everything else. Because Jay didn't have tiles yet, Trainer didn't have the dummy yet, and Zeus didn't even have Zeus tiles yet, where you get the upgrade tile. If you take away all of the tiles and the Trainer bonus on all of these things, they're significantly worse than Gadget. But because they gave tiles to other things so that you can actively only care about 4-ish units, right? You get 4 tiles with Zeus. You get 4 J tiles. Because they gave tiles to all of these other heroes, and most people at high level don't really care about more units than just those 4 specific units. Like if you're running Tesla, you only really care about 4 Teslas. If you're running Inquisitor, you only care about 4 Inquisitors. That is why those deck building options exist. It's because most people only care about those tiles. If you're running Demon Hunter, you only really care about 1 Demon Hunter. The other 3 are just kind of bonuses. Like when you're running, oh my god, it's gonna bother me if I don't know what it's called. I was gonna call it Cruel Taint. Whatever they name changed it to. Absorption of Evil. When you're running Absorption of Evil, all you really care about is the one Demon Hunter that you're buffing up. The reason why Gadget is special is because it has multiple tiles. You can cover the field with tiles. The only thing that currently makes Gadget slightly better than everything else is 2 things. 1, you can cover the field. So if you have a deck, if you're running a deck that utilizes multiple cards, like you need multiple things on the field that you're trying to buff at the same time. In example, Blade Dancer in either form, Demon Hunter to an extent, but not really. Monk, but I feel like because of the way that Monk exists in this current meta, unless you're running counter spells, you can't run it, and you have to run Mermaid to get rid of negative effects. Like there's just not a lot of decks anymore that would require the usage of all of the tiles on the field. At which point the only thing that makes Gadget special are gold tiles at level 15, which is fine because you only get Zeus tiles at level 15. And you get J, but the reason why people think J is a better hero than Gadget is because you can get the J tiles at level 10. You can have a level 10 J where you get 4 J tiles that give 4 units attack speed boost. And those can also overlap onto your growth tiles if you're running growth, or your strength tiles if you're running strength. And because that can overlap, and you're probably not running a deck that utilizes all the tiles, that's why people think that J is better. Because this meta has switched so much because of the tiles of Zeus and J, the only thing that makes Gadget special anymore is if you get a gold tile. So if they were going to buff Gadget, one of the buffs could be a change to the gold tile, right? They could make the gold tile special in some different way. Somebody suggested maybe a unit on a gold tile gets a cleanse, like a 15% chance to cleanse whenever it gets negative affected, or a 30% chance to cleanse. I would suggest that once you fill the field, because Gadget takes so long, once you fill the field with regular tiles, if you have Gadget at 15, every single activation gives you a gold tile. What if you could, after you get to 15 tiles, every activation gives you 1 gold tile, and then 1 gold tile, and then 1 gold tile. And then you could fill the field with full gold tile, because that would also be flavorful for the idea of Gadget, building something to become better. What did they decide to buff it with? The hero's active ability now causes anvils to fall with mechanisms regardless of the way the field is filled. That kind of feels like it should have been there since the beginning. I looked at that for the first time and I was like, why wasn't it always like that? Because originally, as it has been forever, you get the anvils after you build the machine, which makes sense. And now, and make no mistake, nobody used this card for damage, for like activation damage. Nobody was like, oh, I need to get Gadget because of the anvils. The anvils are just so great. It was a bonus, and if anything, it helps because it slows the field, but nobody was using it for damage. But wait, there's more. The base damage of anvils has also been reduced to 5,000, while damage increase with hero level has been added. So they also reduced the damage, but if you have a better Gadget, it'll do more damage. But again, nobody ever used this for damage. Nobody is using Gadget and being like, oh no, like I'm at a double boss wave. I hope I can kill the field with my Gadget ability. You're still not going to be able to do that. It's going to do significantly more damage than the no damage, but it's still not going to kill anything. And they have to understand this, that this is not going to scale. That's not their intent. Their intent is not to scale this. Like, you're not going to have like a level 20, Gadget, murdering the field. And even if you do, if you have a level 20 Gadget, you don't care about anything beyond triple boss waves. You don't care about any of that anyway. The higher Gadget you have, the less you care about early waves when you could be using this to kill those waves. Like, that's not going to help you. Your regular unit is going to kill the wave. Like, 2 of your regular units are going to kill the wave. I feel like this is it's a buff for sure, but it kind of feels like adding fire damage to Fire Mage. Like, you would just kind of look at that. It's like, yes, it is a buff because now it does burn damage. Now, like, the unit has it's caught on fire. It's burning now. But you kind of look at it like, didn't it always do that? Why wouldn't it always have done that? That doesn't make this better at all. I mean, it does, but it's like the lowest form of making something better. It's like they didn't do this buff to change it, to update it for the meta that we're currently in after they updated J, right? Like, what if the J update, instead of giving you J tiles and the crack shot ability, what if they were like, oh, instead of 20 arrows on activation, it's now 25 arrows. You're like, yeah, that's a buff, but it's still not going to kill things. I guess it's going to kill a couple more things, but not significantly more things. That's what they did with this. It's not an update to update it for the meta. It's an update to change it to what it should have always been anyway. And that makes me so mad because they have been updating every other hero. They updated Necromancer. They kind of updated Trickster. They updated Jay to where Jay is like a superhero. They updated Trainer. And they finally decide to like look at Gadget, and this is what we get? That seems insane. It seems insane that like this is what they felt like needed to be changed. That everybody is running either Mermaid or Zeus. And if you don't have access to Zeus, you're probably just running Mermaid or Jay. People are running Jay, Mermaid, and Zeus. Those are the three heroes. That's it. Some people are running Necromancer, but those are in very specific decks. But it's Jay, Zeus, and Mermaid. That's it. That's the only heroes that are good to run. Because of the specificity of the tile itself. And the fact that they took away the idea that Gadget has special tiles by giving everything tiles is insane. If you wanted to give Gadget a buff, I feel like the best thing they could have done was after you fill the field with regular tiles, every activation is a gold tile. It doesn't need to be crazy. I'm not asking for the world. I'm saying like, what if you activated? Okay, so everything stays the same. But when you get to 15, every activation is now a gold tile. You have a chance to do gold tiles on pre-fields, right? You have the same pre-activation. When you get to 15, there are two ways. It stays the same the whole time. When you get to 15, you have a 20, at 16, I have a 21% chance to get a gold tile every activation. Also, at 15, you now get 3 tiles. So instead of needing 8 activations to fill the field, you only need 5 because you're doing 3 times 5 is 15. So it's much quicker to fill the field. And then you're also getting, as a passive bonus, a 20% chance every activation to get a gold tile. If the buff, and they didn't need to change anything else, but if they made it to where when you filled the field, every subsequent activation gives you 1 gold tile, to where you could get all of these double bonuses for all of these things, that's all they would have needed to do. That's it. They don't need to they don't need to do a cleanse on a tile. Like, they don't need to fundamentally change everything. If you build the machine Like, that's what Gadget's flavor is. She's building a machine. If you build the machine and you finish building the machine, and then you can make the machine cool by filling it with gold tiles after you've already built the machine, and then you can just gold plate everything. If you had a double bonus on every single tile, I think more people would use Gadget. I think that would make Gadget an epic hero. I don't think that it would push it necessarily into legendary, because at its core, it's just bonuses. It's an attack bonus, it's a speed bonus, and it's a crit damage chance. And even at 16, it's a 22% damage, 21% speed, 3.2%. These are not crazy numbers. Like a level 20J, it has a 40% speed increase on 4 tiles. And you're supposed to be led to believe that, oh, well, it's only the 4 tiles, it's not the whole field. Yes, but most decks don't run a lot of units. Most decks could get away with just using the 4 tiles and you're done. If you had the 4 tiles and you used 4 Inquisitors and you just put them on those tiles, that's all you need. You'd need to get a double bonus on Gadget in order to get the same bonus. And it's a rare hero. And this is an epic. I just feel like if they don't update Gadget again, like in a very near subsequent update, if they don't look at this and are like, wow, maybe we should update Gadget again. Maybe we should make Gadget somewhat more interesting in some other way. Then I'm starting to like feel like how everybody else does, that J is just better. I still like my Gadget because I utilize all of the tiles. And in case of like Bloomy Dash Blade Dancer, like it's good, but Blade Dancer is not a good unit. And if that's the only thing that Gadget is benefiting from, it's probably better to just run J. It's probably better to just run Mermaid and just run a better unit. Because as of right now, most units only care about 4 tiles, which is what makes Zeus good, and Necromancer good, and J good. And Mermaid is just universally good with everything. I'm very disappointed at what they decided to do with Gadget. And honestly, if they don't update this again, like soon, I'm not going to promote Gadget. I'm not going to promote people getting Gadget. I'm just going to tell people to get J and get Mermaid and call it a day and just build your deck that way. Because it's not worth it. With that being said, I don't think the Mermaid nerf is that big of a deal. The damage bonus that when you have a bubble, it used to be 25%, now it's going to be 10%. If you were using Mermaid for the damage boost, you were using Mermaid wrong. So that shouldn't affect you. The bubble duration reduced from 45 to 35 seconds. That sounded good in my head first until I realized what that was. And what that is the bubbles, if they are untouched on your field, used to stay for 45 seconds. Obviously, the longer that they stay, the more chances you have of filling your field, assuming your opponent doesn't do anything about any of your bubbles. Because when you throw bubbles onto the field, your bubbles will go onto units that don't already have bubbles on them. And so if you're trying to hit a specific unit, obviously, if you have more bubbles on the field, the bigger of a chance you are to hitting the specific unit that doesn't have a protective bubble on it. But now, it's now less. It goes from 45 seconds. It's going to be on there for 45 seconds of time to 35 seconds, which means that depending on the level of your Mermaid and the level of the units that you're using, my cooldown currently on this deck is 35 seconds, which means that if the bubbles last for 35 seconds and I shoot all the bubbles and nobody touches it, they will all disappear, and I will now shoot a new set of bubbles, and they could just go back onto the same units that were already there. That's assuming that you have a reasonably high level deck, because if you don't, it might even be worse. So the cooldown on mine, the base hero cooldown is 50 seconds. The deck that I'm using it on is 30 seconds. Or the deck's impact on cooldown is reduced by 30%. This current deck at its current level is reducing it by 30 seconds. If I had a maxed out deck, I don't know if legendaries count. It does. It doesn't. If you have a maxed out deck, you can reduce it to a maximum of 30 seconds. If you had maximum cooldown. I don't think legendaries would affect it. Yeah. If you had a maxed out deck, without the duck, you can reduce it to 30 seconds, on activation. But them reducing it to 35 seconds, the bubbles will stay, is a pretty big impact. It basically means that every single time you use bubbles, even assuming that they don't do anything to it, you will never be able to fill your field with bubbles, unless you had a maxed out deck and you had the duck, the reduction duck. That's pretty big. Not being able to have like multiple or all of them. I mean, like, that's also if you have a sub level 20, because if you have a level 20 and you get second wind, you could have the potential to do double activations, which would obviously be much better. And that's going to be like a level 20 mermaid is now going to be much better than a lower level mermaid. But yeah, that's a pretty significant change. The mana for destroying a bubble is now increases with hero level. Nobody was really using it for mana, but that's a nice bonus. And then the hidden defense ability has also been changed. When a unit with a negative effect receives a bubble, the bubble will be destroyed while the unit itself will be purified, which means that you don't get a double protection whenever you cleanse a unit. Now, if a unit is on the field, it has a debuff, and you shoot it, and it and the bubble hits it, it will cleanse it, but it will also not have a shield. So that counts as your bubble. Your bubble will immediately pop as soon as it cleanses it. So then it could be targeted again, which is also a significant difference. I still think that Mermaid is amazing. People are still going to use it. I mean, because there's not a lot of ways to cleanse units, but it's going to be significantly worse, and you are going to notice a difference. I don't think that it's like nerfed to the ground or anything, like that people aren't going to use it, because frankly, there's just no better options. You're not going to run Portal Keeper. It's very hard to roll counter spells, and you're not going to use the cleanse side of Enchant Sword. It's not efficient. And so I feel like the people who were running Mermaid, this is not going to deter them from running Mermaid. It's just going to be worse. And you're going to be able to kill people that are running Mermaid, a little bit easier. I think Robot is going to become much better. If it wasn't already good, before it was already a spoiler alert. It was already good before. But I think that Robot Shaman is going to be a lot better now with this. I think that I think that Monk is going to have a much worse time now, because Mermaid was like the obvious hero to use with Monk, because you didn't want to run Tranquility. I think that this is going to have some kind of impact on the meta. But I think that if you were running Mermaid anyway, you're still going to run Mermaid. And then the Flicker change, the biggest change to Flicker is that the sleep duration is reduced to Portal Keeper time. But the problem with Flicker is that it can only move one adjacent square. like one square next to itself. And because it can only move one square, it really hampers the effectiveness of Flicker. Because obviously you could move this if it could move any square, a Warlock, I trust, is not gonna kill a Flicker. You could literally never care about Warlock ever again. Do you understand that? Like, if it could move anywhere on the field and you could swap places with the Flicker, I'm pretty sure Warlock is not going to kill your hero. I'm pretty sure it's an automatic protection against Warlock. I've never thought about it until this exact moment, but I'm pretty sure it's a infinite protection against Warlock. But because it can only move one square, it takes forever. And it doesn't take forever because it was 10 seconds, although that was another ridiculous thing. 20 seconds and 10 seconds. It didn't take forever because of that. It takes forever because it can only move one square at a time. And you can't just move things from the other side of the board to there. I don't think Flicker is good unless there's a secret update where they actually did change it. They did like an invisible update to where they did change it to where you can move any amount of squares. If they didn't do that, I don't think Flicker is good. I don't think it fits in any deck, because the only deck that it could potentially fit in is Blooming Dash Blade Dancer. But I'm telling you right now that the problem is that it can only move one square. If it can move any number of squares, Blooming Dash Blade Dancer is the only deck that it's good in. And in any other case, every other hero is better. So this buff, I don't think it matters. I feel like this video is already very long. I was going to talk about the tournament, but I know that there's a lot to talk about there. So I'm actually going to end this video here. I trust that developers are not watching my YouTube channel, but if they are, please update Gadget. Please do something with the tiles, because you have to understand that you gave tiles to everybody. You gave tiles to Jay, Necromancer, Zeus. When they added Trickster, I was surprised that Trickster didn't get a mana tile. Like, it generates mana every 5 seconds. I was surprised when, you haven't updated an Elementalist to have an Elementalist tile. There's an obsession with tiles and giving every hero tiles, and Gadget was the original tile unit, and that's what made it good. And now it's just significantly worse than everything else because nobody utilizes the full board. And that's why Gadget is bad. If you give Gadget, on the person who had the original tiles, a good tile, or my suggestion is just at level 15, when you're giving everybody gold tiles anyway, once you fill the board with regular tiles, every activation is a gold tile. If you just did that, that would make Gadget significantly better, and you wouldn't have to change any of the other numbers. Because getting double bonuses on every tile would force people to maybe utilize different strategies in deck building. But as it is, I don't think Gadget is good anymore. I think this solidifies why Gadget is not good. And if the developers can't see that, then there's no reason to buy into the idea that Gadget, filling your board with a number of units is a better option than just buffing one unit and putting it on a good tile.